folks. Thank you for joining us for another edition of Education Matters. And today we have another special guest, as usual. We have Jane Cormier with us. She is a Senate candidate for District 16. And District 16 covers Manchester Wards 1 and 2 and 12
Correct.
and Hooksett and Dunbarton.
And Bo.
And Bow. I almost forgot that one.
There you go.
So anyone living in those districts, we hope you pay attention today because we have some really good news for you. And that Jane has a lot under her bonnet. She's going around talking about Common Core, which is an issue that we just really need to pay attention to in our schools, and why she's running to take the seat away from Mr. Booton.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
Welcome, Jane.
I appreciate it. Any little bit helps to get out the word of what we're trying to do.
Well, I know, and just let us know here what you have to bring us, and
Sure.
and we'll just cover it all in a half an hour.
Well, we'll try to do that, right? I mean, Common Core, certainly. I mean, you've been on the battlefield for that, and as have I, and others in the state of New Hampshire, to try to make people pay attention to what's happening in our schools. Let's face it, moms and pops are busy making money and paying taxes, and sometimes it's hard for them to check in, especially when perhaps the powers that be are not making it really easy for them to be informed. Yeah.
Right. Well, the
So
radical reforms that are happening now in our schools.
yes, we have to pay attention, and thank goodness for folks like yourself who have been sounding the alarm, because otherwise this would really have gone through our school systems and parents would not have known about it. So Common Core has been something that I've been very verbal about, shall we say. The entire top-down education project from the federal government. They say it's not, but it really is. And I've been traveling the last year and a half throughout New Hampshire talking about Common Core and other liberty issues. I'm a big liberty gal. I believe that the smaller the government, the better for everyone. And so Common Core has been really important, and we'll stay in touch because we need to really, really let the folks know here in District 16 what's happening. Manchester was one of the great places in the state because they came out and said that they were not going to have Common Core. But then the work begins after that happens, and sometimes, that has to stay on point.
Yeah,
but
actually, unfortunately, that's probably another topic for another show, what Manchester did. And I know Patrice has brought us some information about how the Manchester academic standards are really AKA Common Core, except they kept cursive writing.
Well, that's a good thing. I mean, got to give them that. I mean, the cursive writing to me is so important. How do kids read their founding documents? Right? They're in cursive. We have to have cursive. Brain development, really important, teaching that to our kids. So we can't be so computerized to the point that we lose all
of the classics.
All of the classical education we've had. Absolutely.
Right.
But as you say, I'm probably going off point here.
Yeah. Well, Common Core, I guess the latest is that some more states have pulled out.
Yes. Yeah, more than ever. This is not there was Thomas Raffio said about a year ago at a New Hampshire Board of Education meeting that, frankly, the train had left the station, and I was quite appalled that he had that attitude when there were so many people sitting in that room to discuss their concerns about Common Core. Before we even got up there, 3 times the train had left the station. And so we need to make sure we keep the dialogue going and the debate going so that we can take that train and send it back to the station.
Right, and the audacity to say that, and when there is so much opposition, and that I know there is some, folks talking about changing the way we have our state school board members, that we elect them rather than they be appointed.
Right.
Right now they're appointed by the governor.
Right.
So, I mean, they can change with each regime.
Right.
And philosophy or, political whim or whatever. And I think the people need to be able to elect their state school board members.
I agree with you.
I don't know how it will be done, how it was set up,
Yep.
But, and also that the state school board elect or choose the commissioner of education rather than the governor.
Being appointed, yes. Well, let's face the administrative state. We're on steroids now, not just in the state, but in the federal government as well, where we're having administrative rules being met and statutes being met, all all away from the vote and the voters. And anytime that you can insert that, that voters have to say, I love that, because that's where it should be. We're a republic.
Right.
We're a republic, and we're supposed to vote in the people that will, stand for us and what we want to see happening in our communities and in our state.
Right.
So
Yeah, too much top-down stuff going
there's
on.
way too much. And I'll tell you truthfully, Deb, that's why I jumped in. I jumped into the race. You probably know this, but I served in the State House last term, and was the first time I had come out for a political, political opportunity. I was raising my kids and teaching music and performing, and when I started to plug in and saw how much overreach was happening, I figured, you know what, I'm jumping in, because I can't do as bad as what I'm seeing out there.
It's out of principle.
Totally.
And,
Totally.
just so folks know at home, too, that I also jumped into the race.
Yeah.
I jumped in as a state rep candidate for the Flotario district, for Litchfield and Ward 8 and 9 in Manchester.
And God bless you for doing it.
And because we've got to maintain our liberties, folks.
Yes.
And we need people with liberty-minded principles
Right.
to go up to Concord. And none of this rhino stuff,
Well, no, the rhino stuff aside, the political party system, the way we're sitting right now, really doesn't mean a whole lot anymore. R doesn't mean R, D doesn't mean D. Undecideds, gosh, I know why they're undecided. I think I might be undecided soon. But the truth of the matter is what we do have is a battle for progressivism and for conservatism. And those are not party aligned, even though people will say any R, any Republican is good. The truth of the matter is the Republican brand is on the line right now. When
Right.
you have a Republican that is voting against the platform, and I don't mean the outside platform, I mean the largest planks of the platform, that being, for instance, Medicaid expansion. It's in the New Hampshire platform that we will not expand Medicaid for Obamacare. And we have some senators that did that. We have, I think, 5, if I'm not mistaken, Republican senators.
And Mr. Booton did.
Mr. Booton certainly did. That was one of the bad planks that I had an issue with, a concern about. The other one was the gas tax. And I'm very vocal about that because it's so much more than the 4.2 cents. The argument aside that it's only a little, I can't tell you the number of times sitting in that New Hampshire House I saw more debate. Well, it's just a little increase. Well, it's just a little bit.
Don't they always say that?
They say it all the time.
It's just $60 a month,
It's
for your
just a little.
property tax. Oh, it's
Right.
increased.
Right, and the bad thing is what we're not discussing is more is not better. More of your tax dollars are not going to save or solve the problem.
The problem, no.
We've got to find a way to stop throwing money at all of these issues and do the hard work, and that's not pleasant, but nobody wants to do it.
Well, what appalled me was that the gas tax, they collect it, and then they rate it.
Yes, constantly.
That's what really ticked me
Now,
off.
now, see, and today I spoke about this at a rally this morning, the very same thing. 23% increase is what this is, this gas tax that Senator Booton also voted for. And I have a concern about it because the problem is roads and bridges in this state. They do need repair. In the last budget alone, I believe it was $28 million that was taken out of the highway fund to go and pay for whatever else in the general fund, okay? Corner offices do that. It's not just been one party or the other. They do it. They raid the fund. And it's supposed to be a dedicated fund. So now here we go. We're going to put another gas tax on. Okay, we're going to say that's dedicated. Well, we know the first one was dedicated. They still rated it. And we're going to put another lump of millions and millions of taxpayers' dollar into that second one. And we haven't solved the problem because that fund is probably going to get rated no matter what they say. The problem, what we should have done and what was not adequately being discussed, certainly in the Senate, because how could you have Republicans going against a large, broad increase of taxes? The Republican Senate should have been all over that.
Right.
The problem is stopping the spending, stopping rating. Take the $28 million that was supposed to go to the highway fund for bridges and roads and apply it
Right.
to bridges and roads.
I can't believe the condition of our highways.
Yeah.
I'm a native of New Hampshire, and I remember they used to pave the roads, and I'd say to myself, or I'd say to my father, we'd drive, I said, why are they paving the road? The road's fine. And there'd probably be a few cracks here
Yeah.
and there. Now you have holes in the roads.
That's right.
They're putting that black
tar stuff, yes.
tar stuff around, which is very dangerous for motorcycles.
Yeah.
Because it's
Slick.
Yeah, it slips and slides.
Yes.
And the motorcycles can
Yeah.
can lose control.
Yeah.
And it's all over the highways. It's not just a little spot here and there. It's all over. Like, hello.
But you see, this is why we sort of go along to get along in politics, and we don't go along to get along at home. You know, if you have a budget, you move heaven and earth to make that budget fit. And for some reason, we're under this misconception that if we just keep pouring money into it, and mind you, New Hampshire is not doing well. Our businesses are not growing.
We need jobs.
We need jobs.
And we need
incentives.
businesses, right.
We need incentives to bring business to New
You
Hampshire.
probably know more than I do at this point about the business tax and you know, those things about how businesses, I mean, the electricity costs in the state.
Terrible.
And that's another thing.
The energy costs in New Hampshire, I think, are #1 in the country, if I'm not mistaken.
And the what is it from Quebec? The electricity line?
Yes. Oh, my goodness, isn't that terrible?
Just lost it.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
Oh, my goodness.
anyway,
Isn't that funny? I'm blank, too. How many times we've talked about it?
yeah.
Right.
I'll remember it. But anyhow, that line, just so folks know, that is not bringing electricity to New
us.
Hampshire.
Yes.
And we're being made to feel guilty
Right.
that, oh, well, you don't want the pass.
Yes. Northern Pass.
Northern Pass. You don't want the Northern Pass, right? And that's going to increase our electric availability and blah, blah, blah. But
We get very little.
there's no exits here in New Hampshire for it.
Yes.
Bring it all the way to Connecticut.
Right.
And we destroy our scenic views. And basically taking it by eminent domain. Hello?
Right. Well, that has to be
for public profit, for private profit.
No, we have to have that discussion. See, that's one of those hard, unpleasant
show, yeah.
subjects that our elected officials should be having. They should not be taking the easy way out and shoving that bill to the taxpayer to pay, and they're doing it again and again. You know, as much as the Medicaid expansion, that pool of uninsured people that need assistance, we could have sat down had we had the desire to do so and found that and fixed that problem. Instead, we cast this huge net of a mandate that is truly unfunded. It's predicated on the federal government following through on all that
like
money coming in.
Like disabilities, like special needs, right?
Right.
They're going to fund it, and they never did.
Right.
We've got
Again and
history.
again, we've seen that.
The Medicaid expansion, I have no problem with folks being helped when
Of
they
course.
need help.
Of course.
But when I heard that it was up to like $90-something thousand per family, for a
right.
family,
178% of the poverty line or something.
I mean, like a family can make $90-something thousand and be qualifying for Medicaid, and I'm saying, gee whinikers.
Well,
I mean,
it's like I said, we did debate it in the House floor. We had a Democratic majority who was hell-bent on passing that. But the truth is once we find out that the money isn't going to flow, we're going to have that mandate to fulfill. Because what are we just going to stop insuring all those people that we said we would insure? Right? So it's just bad leadership. Really, in many cases, these senators and these people in the House of Representatives have not listened to the people. We've had enough. We want you to start leading in a fiscally sound way, the same way we budget. It is the same. Don't tell me it's not the same. You do not spend more than you have. It's very simple.
right. I mean, I'm sure if a person needs medical care,
Yes.
nobody's going to deny the medical care.
They aren't denied. And you know what? There should be assistance for those that are truly in need. But I'm not sure that making a higher
Threshold,
income
yeah,
threshold is the way to go about to do it. And you know what? People signed on to it because it looked good. I heard many people in the Senate talking about this, saying that, well, we can't just look like we're the party of nothing, or we have to look like we cared and we did something. Well, how about we stop worrying about what we look like? I'm tired of what we look like. Let's just do the right thing. Let's stop talking falsehoods and pretty one-liners and calling this bipartisan. I mean, bipartisan doesn't work anymore when you have Republicans that aren't Republicans and Democrats that aren't Democrats. It's progressive and it's conservative. And that's where we should be meeting as progressives. Do you think government should be running the show? And if you are, you're a progressive. If you think that government should assist you in running your own show, then you're more conservative. And you know, that distinction needs to be made. These wonderful labels that says, well, it was a bipartisan vote. Bull-ticky. It wasn't bipartisan. It was a progressive vote. And every time we have progressive votes that get in there, we lose a little bit more of our individual freedom.
Well, I have in my mind that this is basically a ploy to put the state in deficit so that they can slip in a state sales tax.
And many people are saying
or
that.
a state income tax.
Right, because what are we going to do? We need that money. See, that's where the more becomes more until there just is no more.
It's a slippery slope.
Totally.
Anyhow.
And Common Core is the same thing.
Yeah, they just get it in the schools.
Right.
Get a little bit here, a little bit there, build it up, get the professional development. Oh, we've done so much already, you know, we can't take it out now.
Right.
Well, I mean, we're doing shows on Common Core, so
Sure.
folks will be able to get more. Just Google it and see Common Core pros and cons, and
Right.
I mean, you'll just spin your head.
Your head will spin. And you know what? We should be asking our officials to chime in on this. Senators that are
Yes.
silent on Common Core, a shame. You should be
It
ashamed.
needs to be a political issue throughout the whole country because mothers are up in arms.
Yeah, 'cause
seeing
moms
their
get
kids,
it.
and the politicians need to listen, and not just to the lobbyists. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of those.
There's too many of those.
They're throwing money around,
Sure they are.
and Bill Gates running the show, and
Right. Right, and the unfunded mandate is something that even though some, not so much because we didn't get Race to the Top funds, which was the Bill Gates initiative funded by the stimulus as well. The first stimulus bill is what really brought the money out for Common Core. But, you know, the truth of the money is going to really be impacting our communities, because once you're in the Common Core thing, all of that technology is going to be changing rapidly. So you're going to spend millions probably before we're done to get everything up to snuff with the
3
computers.
years is going to go by pretty quick.
Yeah.
3 to 5 years
Do
for
you
the
think
life
that
of the computer.
Absolutely. That technology, even the programming in the computer, leave the computer. How about now that's going to be obsolete? Oh, we need new programs.
Microsoft comes out with a new operating system.
Yep.
There's always something.
Right. And so it's going to be a
We're not going to be able to
never-ending.
keep up with it.
Absolutely.
I mean,
See, and that's
books are
poor.
good.
Well, I tell you, it's going to be a real eye-opener if we don't stop it now, which is we're kind of at the beginning because the Smarter Balance assessments start in 2015, legitimately.
Yeah. Well, the mayor said he's not doing it.
Well, good
so
for him.
good for him. And we'll, see what happens with that ordeal.
Listen,
But,
if the mayor wants to have people fighting behind him, those people will come out and fight with him on this issue.
he wants the people up in New Hampshire legislature to work with him.
Good.
And I know you will, Jane.
Absolutely.
And I know some of these other state reps, candidates who are running, will also work with the mayor to get what's best for Manchester.
Right.
Because what's best for Manchester might not be for Bedford or for any place else, okay? Everyone has a little whatever.
Right?
I mean, we're supposed to have education at local control level.
Absolutely. That's the trick.
And Mr. Comstock was here from the New Hampshire School Board Association, and he was fantastic. And but his hands are tied, and I mean it's just terrible what he has to put up with.
Oh, I'm sure.
With the
This
commissioner.
is a big power thing, This is a very powerful. The education board in New Hampshire really does believe that they run the show. They really do, and
Well, they
will
come to the legislature and they tell you what they want for legislation,
Right.
which is coming from the feds. Hello?
Yeah, exactly. And then when you push back on it, you're not understanding, or that was incorrect, or you're an extremist. No,
Right.
I like my school boards. I love my school boards because school boards know what's going on in your community. That's local control, and that's the best education you teach to the child, not to this overwhelming, wheel in the cog of progress stuff that they're throwing at Common Core.
Not only that, teaching them not to be Americans.
Yeah, that's a part of the
Teaching
indoctrination
them to
portion.
be a global citizen.
Right.
And hello, I've never seen a passport that said global citizen.
Yeah, you think?
Okay?
Maybe they'll change that too.
Oh, God forbid. And teaching them that their constitution is, really has problems.
Yeah.
And that the United Nations human rights agenda, human rights document is one to really pay attention to and
Right.
ascribe rather than our
Well,
own Constitution.
which is flawed. They see it as flawed in the social studies assignments that I've seen, that the Declaration of Independence was flawed, and some of the assignments that I've seen asking students to, put down some thoughts on that. How is it flawed? And you see them write things like, well, the men that wrote the Declaration of Independence, I saw one that said, well, they were slave owners.
And they were racists.
Yes, and so that comes out. I mean, but is that essentially really the message of our founding documents? I mean, it's so skewed, and that's why people have to pay attention.
Well, from the beginning, our Constitution was an ideal idea, and it took a while to get it to
Sure.
where it should be better, taking care of all citizens.
Of course.
And not, but when we have selective enforcement everywhere now.
Yeah,
I mean, even to the point where you have those who can walk on the sidewalks and those that can't.
that's right.
But today, the Supreme Court
Yes,
said that's wrong.
yes.
Well, the other day they said that's wrong. Today they did the Hobby Lobby.
Right. SB 120, which was a big bill. SB 120. I'm sorry, was the Citizen United get around. I'm sorry, I forget the number of the bill for the what was the abortion clinic buffer zone.
Buffer zone, right?
Right, that went down as well. And then today we found out that the Hobby Lobby suit,
They won.
that mandate was not constitutional.
Yeah, right.
So maybe we're waking up. I don't know. I like to think so anyway. yeah,
Right.
that we're figuring it out.
Yeah. Well, okay, back to District 16.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we have Hooksett,
Yeah.
Dunbarton, and Bow, which are the outskirts,
Candia.
and Candia.
Yeah.
That's a huge district,
It is.
and a very interesting district because it's kind of like the bedroom of Manchester.
It is, and it's very, from the district I was in the floterial seat as well in Alton, Barnstead, and Gilmanton. And we had, some progressive-leaning communities in there. I'm finding as I'm door knocking and going to businesses here that there really seems to be an unspoken agitation with how things are going. I get the feeling like the debate isn't really being waged quite yet. And when you talk to folks, we're going in the wrong direction. But I sense sometimes a reticence to discuss it, which I find very interesting.
People don't want other people to know how they believe and think about politics.
I guess so, and I don't blame them for feeling that way, considering how everything's falling on our heads these days.
Yeah.
But we're going to keep talking to folks, and this race for me is nothing but an important opportunity to talk to folks about important issues that we're facing, and their ability to have a voice, because that's what it's all about.
Who's going to bring their voice to Concord?
Right.
And, jobs,
Yeah.
education, and usually education's not an issue that anybody really talks about.
Right.
But because of Common Core, it is.
That's right.
And we need someone there who's strongly understanding Common Core and a mother,
Absolutely.
as you are,
Yeah.
who's a mama grizzly for her children, and someone who's just not going to brush it off as, the kids get an education, doesn't matter what.
Right.
It does matter.
It does matter. We have to stop being afraid. We have to stop being afraid to stand up and let our voice be heard, because it does matter what you think. It does matter what people think, no matter how they might try to stop the debate. That's what we're based on.
So we got to stay with local control,
Yes.
fight for local control,
Number one.
keep local control, and
And then
check and
economy.
and then the economy, the jobs.
Yes.
What difference does it make? Workforce training with Common Core that the kids come out,
Right.
and what are they going to do?
Right.
What
Right.
are they going to do?
Yeah. There is no exceptionalism anymore. I remember when I went to school, there was this idea. I remember it so well. It's visceral in me. This idea that I can do anything I want. It was exciting. I could major in anything I wanted in school, and the expectation was it was possible.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But now it's different. Now there's this heaviness. It's so expensive. And, is that going to get me a job? Frankly, when I went to college, I wasn't thinking only about a job. I was thinking about how much I loved to learn, first of all, but then how I was going to use what I lived to live my life, what I learned to live my life.
That's a liberal arts education, more or less, that it's not just a pigeonhole.
Yeah.
That you're not just getting a certificate to do that.
Right.
But you're getting a broad enough education that you can apply it to more ways than one.
And think about how you want to use it. When they do all these assessments, and there's so much,
course.
like you said, this workforce development going on in education.
Workforce training, yeah.
Right. What kid knows? I
They're
didn't know.
starting in at least 6th grade now.
It's crazy stuff.
I mean, as parents, you know how you say to your kid, well, what are you going to do when you grow up?
Yeah.
Well, what do you, like, but we don't really expect
Of course
a
not.
concrete answer.
That's right.
But now they go to the guidance counselor, and they're taking all these notes,
Yes.
and they're really directing their path
Where your strengths
now.
are. I have a tale that I tell occasionally. When I was living in Vienna as an opera singer, because that's what my history was, music and performance and education. I lived in Vienna for about a year and a half, and while I was there, there was a young girl who was 19. I forget her name, obviously. It's been a long time ago. But she was my dresser in this show. I was in Phantom of the Opera over there, and she was one of my dressers. And she wanted to come to America, so I took her. She came back with me for a couple of months. But I didn't know it at the time, because I wasn't a political animal, of course. But she was telling me how despondent she was about her education in Vienna. And I thought it was otherworldly. When I remember thinking back to those conversations, they would test, I don't know if it's the same now because I haven't lived there quite a while, but at the time they would test you through high school. And education was free. Your college education was free, but only
To those.
to those who followed what they said their strengths were. And to not follow that path, the education was so outrageously expensive that unless they were wealthy, you couldn't even begin to get the education. So she wanted to have, I think it was like more of a creative bent, and she had gotten high marks in like being a shopkeeper in that line. She hated it. She didn't want to do it, but she felt there was no other choice. I'm wondering if we're not going that
We're
way.
doing that with our kids, too. We have 1 minute left, Jane.
Yeah.
So if you want to wrap up with, the folks at home and letting them know how excited you are about wanting to be their representative for District 16
Well,
and for the Senate.
yep, for the Senate, I'm new to the territory. We're going to be having so many events. I hope people come out and love to meet with them, love to talk with them and shake their hand. I'm really about being a voice for the folks that need someone with a backbone to vote the way they talk.
And not listen to the lobbyists.
And not listen to the lobbyists or others in the body, because
The pressure?
the pressure to vote a certain way because politically expedient to do so. I won't do it. It's frankly not worth my time to do it. And so people will know very much where I stand on the issues, and I'm happy to talk to them. They can go to my site at www.jane4newhampshire.com. That's 4.
Great.
And there's lots of information there, too.
Okay, great, Jane. Well, we appreciate having you.
Thank you very
Hopefully
much.
you'll come back again and see
I'm
us.
sure.
Thanks, folks, for watching. We'll see you next time. Take care.